Hello, this is Ward Bryson coming to you out of Health Education at the Athens City County Health Department. Today you are tuning in to our Heart Health series, a series of podcast episodes where we will be talking to people serving in the county and working in the county about heart health and different angles as to how we understand heart health, how we approach being healthy while living with heart disease, and just trying to educate people about heart health as a topic overall. Last episode, if you caught it, and if you haven't, you should, we talked about stigma, and we talked about some personal experiences with heart health in the family with Bailey Plumley, a ComCore member serving with Athens City Schools. Today, I am joined by our sound tech, Logan Lambert, who's serving with Nelsonville City Schools with ComCore, and with Abigail Hearne, who is serving with CFI through ComCore. Abigail, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Abigail Hearne, and I'm one of the ComCore members at Community Food Initiatives, which we commonly refer to as CFI. And I specifically work with the school gardens programs at Community Food Initiatives, which entails us going to elementaries and preschools and teaching students about the environment, about plants, and about growing their own food and maintaining the garden. Some of our other programs at CFI work with us directly in the community gardens and also with our food distribution donation station program.
Yeah, we actually at the health department pick up from the donation station so that we can distribute food at our harm reduction clinic every Wednesday. So we really appreciate CFI and the work that they do, and we really appreciate Abigail being here today to speak both as a person serving with CFI, but also as someone who lives in Athens County and enjoys fitness and the great outdoors. Can you talk a little bit about your personal experience there?
Yes, definitely. So I've always been a fan of playing outside and doing anything I can to get outside. And I graduated from OU, so that this is approaching like my 5th year here in Athens. And so I've got to explore a lot of the outdoor rec and that Athens has to offer, which it is plentiful, most definitely plentiful. I would say my kind of gateway to outdoor rec in Athens was the Hockey and Adina bike path, because that was like right outside my dorm freshman year. And so I used that to go on runs and kind of explore Athens as I didn't have a vehicle my first 2 years. So that bike path really is like kind of a home for me. And also it's just super accessible since it's mostly flat too. So there was like, as I was first starting like my little like running interest, it was really nice to get started there.
I will cut in real quick.
Yeah.
I will say that it's funny that you mentioned the Adena Bikeway, because it is also right next to where we're recording right now, at my house in the Plains, because I'm working from home at the moment. And it stretches all the way up to Nelsonville, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's like through the entire county almost, of Athens County really, or at least the entire top part of it.
Yeah.
So for most people living here, that is one of the most accessible places to go out and, bike, walk, go places. You can walk from there all the way from Nelsonville to Athens.
Definitely, yeah. And it's like, even though that Athens has like some bike lanes in town, it's still very much, it feels a lot safer, and it's a lot nicer to be on the bike path in order to commute to places. Yeah.
Okay, sorry for cutting you off.
No, thank you.
I guess we're curious about, just in general, you bike, you walk, you hike, you swim a little bit, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
These are, for our listeners, these are all aerobic activities, aerobic exercises. And aerobic exercises, for our purposes, are exercises that we want to try and incorporate more of in our lives, especially if we're living with heart disease, because those exercises help us to manage heart disease, help us to manage high blood pressure, and help us to manage high cholesterol levels. Abigail, can you, as someone who's studied biology, tell us a little bit about the difference between aerobic and anaerobic exercise from, like a science level?
Sure, yeah. So, there are like 2 main ways your body can produce energy, and that's aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic meaning using oxygen, and anaerobic meaning without oxygen. So, which might seem a little weird because we're always breathing, so means we're always breathing oxygen. But when you start to elevate your heart rate and you start to do more active activities, they can get divided into the two types. And so aerobic activities basically means that your cells need a whole bunch of oxygen to produce a lot of energy. And the reason that's really important for like things like your heart health and other cardiovascular health conditions is that the only way to get oxygen to your cells is to pump a lot of blood. So it really exercises your heart in a way that anaerobic doesn't, because anaerobic doesn't need to get so much oxygen to your cells because it makes energy without using oxygen. So you don't need to pump your blood as much because oxygen's within blood.
So I guess what you're saying is that aerobic respiration gets your heart pumping and your lungs moving, and that's what we want.
Exactly. Yeah.
And some examples of that would be...
So that would be like going on a long walk, or especially like if it's like a power walk, you're like elevating your heart, your breath a little bit. Going on a jog, going on a bike ride, swimming. Those are all great examples of aerobic respiration. And anaerobic would be like weightlifting or even rock climbing or sprinting. Things that are short bursts of like stronger energy.
Okay, so something that requires some stamina, that you really do feel your body kind of working up and like you're feeling, not the burn, I feel like that's kind of a weightlifting metaphor, but like you're feeling something in your heart and your lungs, and like you know that you're aerobically generating energy.
Yeah, something that has you breathing a little bit heavier, but like kind of a consistent breath over a longer period of time.
Okay, great. So you do hike and you do bike. Do you have any particular park recommendations for people in the city, or people near the city, or just anywhere in the county?
Sure, I have like 3 that come like right off the top of the head, and that's like Sells Park, Stroud's Run State Park, and the Bailey's Trail Center. And so Sells is a great spot if you're local in Athens because you can just walk to it. It's off of Avon Place, behind Soul Restaurant. And Stroud's is, you can also access Stroud's through Sells, but if you just want to get to the trailhead at Stroud's, you can drive out to Stroud's. It's about like a 10-minute drive from Athens. And that one's great because it has a lot of different trails, and it has a lot more acres and miles on it, and it has the lake. So in the summertime you can swim, but you can also rent kayaks and paddle boards and even boats, and you can fish and everything out there. So Stroud's is really fun for a lot of activities in the summertime. And lastly, Bailey's. Bailey's is quite new and it's ever expanding. Its goal is to be like one of the largest trail systems, mountain biking trail systems in the on the East Coast area, but it also is a lot more than just for mountain bikers. It's for hikers and walkers and runners, basically anything other than motorized sports. And this trail system is located in Chansey is the main trailhead. So this one also does require a vehicle or a very long bike ride from Athens to get to it. But these trails are really nice because they are less technical and they are more smooth than Stroud's and Sells. So Stroud's and Sells has a lot of rocks and roots, and versus Bailey's has a very smoothed out. They like were able to get a small excavate in there and like really smooth out the trails.
So Bailey's is more accessible to a beginner hiker or somebody that's not looking for as intense or as harrowing a time out in the great outdoors.
Definitely, yeah. But it's also one of the most beautiful ones too.
Okay, that's great. And it is important to note that while we're mentioning mountain biking or running through some real trails, that your physical activity does not need to be that intense or that out of someone's comfort zone. That as long as you are getting your heart rate up for, what would you say, like a half hour is kind of that minimum to really get those benefits?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like a half hour of raised heart rate, as long as you're doing that, you're fine. So that could be going out for a walk in your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That could be, if you're not in town and maybe you're out in the outlying towns of Athens County, maybe you're in Coolville or Gloucester, or maybe you're up in Nelsonville and you have your own trails that you like. I'm sure there's plenty of resources and places to go outside. I know here I walk around my neighborhood all the time. Abigail, do you just go on a walk just down the street ever?
Yeah, especially now that in the winter, like if when the trails are like a lot more icy and a lot more difficult to walk around, the neighborhood's a great spot to take a stroll.
Winter, I feel like, is one of the biggest barriers for people getting outside and getting some exercise.
I agree.
It's cold, it's uncomfortable, like there's a reason that so many New Year's resolutions fail. It's just, it's hard to do things at this time of year. And while it's warming up a little bit, but day by day, it's still not quite ready for people to go out for like crazy runs or hikes or even just a little walk. Do you have any ideas for things that people can do while they're indoors, or some things that are a little bit more accessible this time of year?
Yeah, I have a couple because it is really difficult for myself to stay active in the winter. But some things that I've been trying are indoor yoga. So on YouTube, you can find so many different channels that do yoga, and I've just been dabbling with a couple of those channels, and so I've been doing indoor yoga. Oftentimes I'll take like breaks between work. I work virtually sometimes, so I'll take breaks and I'll just put my headphones in and I'll just dance, and I'll definitely get my heart rate up. I'll get hot. I'll honestly work up a little sweat. So I think just like anything that you can do that has movement indoors is something that you can celebrate. And so a break time to dance or to stretch and do some yoga, or even going off of YouTube, you can also find some strength videos on YouTube that you can just do with things in your home or just your own body for like a half hour, just to kind of like get your heart rate elevated and maybe work up a sweat.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions, but first I would like to note that you mentioned some strength training at home. And while we are kind of stressing aerobic exercise, there are benefits to be gained from anaerobic exercise like weightlifting, or there's like a bouldering gym in the plains. There's all kinds of things that you can do that are not aerobic, and they are still good for you. They will still help you kind of just build some muscle overall in your body, kind of help you maybe access those aerobic exercises later. So any kind of exercise you do, even if some aerobic ones are less accessible to you right now. But about the dance parties, do I need to be a good dancer?
Absolutely not. And also, like, what is a good dancer?
I think we can all point out a good dancer, but to each their own. But you do get the health benefits, even if you're dancing very poorly, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And also if you're doing it in your home and maybe no one's around, like, I feel like you're gonna feel good. At least I feel good moving my body. And even if it looks terrible to others, I can't see myself. So it makes me feel good.
What is our song of choice or music of choice?
I usually like to throw it back and do like some early 2000s music.
Early 2000s, so like middle
R&B.
School dance.
Yeah, no, well, I guess like I could be middle school dance, right? Why not? It could be any genre you want. I guess I like to dance more to like more R&B stuff, and so that was like my early 2000s in my experience.
Okay, that's fair. Have you mentioned yoga?
I have mentioned yoga a little bit, and I just mentioned a little bit because I recently got started with it. I know a lot of my friends really do it a lot more consistently, and they really love it and see a lot of benefits from it, both spiritually, emotionally, and physically. So I've recently started getting into it, and at first it's difficult because you really have to focus your breath, but after a while, when you do the motions, you can tell that it is really kind of like working your breath, which is perfect for this aerobic exercise that is really important for our heart health, is being able to maintain and control your breathing.
Okay, that's really cool. So in my experience, and I'm not nearly the athlete that you are, like you won't find me mountain biking. You'll find me biking on the bikeway,
which is great.
Which is great. You'll find me walking around my neighborhood. But last year I was actually in Cincinnati doing a year of service there. And I lived in a house with the people that I was serving with, and for a few months at least, everything was shut down. It was very hard to get out and do anything. It was the winter and it was gross out, and we just didn't want to go outside. But we regularly were doing yoga, and I had never done yoga before, and I did not realize the workout that it can be. And it really does get your heart rate going. It's kind of like, and this goes back to dance, it's kind of like Zumba, It just like, it doesn't feel like it should be the same level of like exercise or like that kind of that burn, that uncomfortability that feels good somehow. You really get that with yoga, and I never expected that.
Yeah, I agree.
But also yoga is accessible because I didn't know anything about it. You just do some searching on YouTube
Mhm.
and you find a video that is like strength focused, if you want to do that, or aerobic focused, and you can really just in your living room do whatever you want. You could also build flexibility or do all kinds of things, all of which are good for your health, even if they are not the prime focus of this episode.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great too because they have like even ones that are sectioned off by time. So if you only have like 15 minutes, you can do that, like a 15-minute video instead of like a 45-minute one.
So we've learned a lot today, I would say, about going outside, about what things are available in Athens County, about things that we can do at home to stay a little bit fit, stay a little bit active. You taught us the difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Whether or not I understood or will remember any of that is another matter, but thank you for teaching us.
No problem.
I will say to anyone listening, and especially if you're living with heart health, if you're going to be engaging in like a real change to your exercise regimen, or you're considering some new exercise practice, you should consult your care provider. You should talk about the level of difficulty that you're undertaking. You should talk about the kinds of exercise that you're engaging in, and depending on your specific condition or anything that you may personally be dealing with, your doctor will know if that is too strenuous for you. They will know if there's other things that they might be able to recommend you. So always check in with your healthcare provider, especially if you're dealing with some kind of heart condition that can make this a little bit more difficult for you. Other than that, that is our recording for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Abigail.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for recording again, Logan, who sits silently to the side. He's nodding appreciatively. He's as happy to be here as we are. And thank you again to all of our listeners for tuning in. We will see you again next time. We'll probably be touching on health and diet, or maybe having a talk with a medical professional. That is yet to be seen. Thank you, and have a good one, everyone.